The emergency lights blinked in a harsh red across the dim bridge of the Starweaver, casting shadows that made Kira's reptilian skin glisten. She clutched her console as another violent tremor rattled the research vessel. The ship's engine had failed in a catastrophic malfunction, leaving them stranded in the cold expanse between star systems. Status report. Kira shouted to the crew, her tail twitching in anxiety. The Vidiian research team had never faced such a dire situation. Their species was still new to deep space exploration, and their ship, though suitable for research, wasn't designed for emergencies. The main screen flickered, displaying extensive damage to their primary engine system. Sparks flew from a nearby console as another system failed. Though the atmosphere remained stable, without engine power, they would eventually lose life support. Sending emergency signals across all frequencies, announced First Officer Dorian, his normally bright green scales dull with concern. Targeting all spacefaring species in range. Kira watched the communication panel with growing hope as the first responses trickled in, but that hope quickly turned to despair. Each message was a rejection. The Centurions dismissed them, citing their vessel as too primitive. The Arcturus Alliance declared the region outside their jurisdiction. The Siren Collective's response was blunt: lesser species. Maintain radio silence. Kira's heart sank. Their people had always admired these advanced civilizations, but now, when they needed help, they were ignored. Then, a new signal popped up. New signal detected, Dorian announced with a mix of surprise and confusion. It's different from the others. The main screen lit up with a message in an unfamiliar language, but their translators quickly adapted. This is Captain Robert Mason of the Endeavor, an Earth vessel. We've received your distress call and are altering course to assist. Hold position. ETA 43 minutes. Please respond to confirm message received. Earth. Kira exchanged a bewildered glance with her crew. I've never heard of them. One of her science officers scanned their database. Found them. They're called humans. Relatively new to space travel. FTL technology only developed 50 years ago. Kira's first instinct was to reject their offer. If the more advanced civilizations wouldn't help, what could this young species do? But as another violent shake rattled the ship, the decision was made for her. Send confirmation, Kira ordered, her voice steady despite her uncertainty. And thank them. The following 43 minutes were filled with tension as the crew worked to keep critical systems operational, while Kira researched everything she could find on humans. There wasn't much, mostly trade reports and brief diplomatic interactions. They were classified as a developing species with unusual behavior patterns. When the Endeavor arrived, Kira gasped. The human ship was smaller than expected, but moved with surprising grace. It wasn't as elegant as Centurion ships, but it felt purposeful. The main screen switched on, revealing the human bridge. Kira found herself facing a human woman with short brown hair and warm, understanding eyes. Dr. Emily Brooks here, the human said. We see you've lost engine power and have significant damage to your outer hull. We're preparing a rescue team. Captain Mason is coordinating with our engineers to find the safest way to help you. You're really going to help us? Kira couldn't mask her disbelief. Even though we're strangers? Even though our technology is less advanced than yours? Emily's face showed confusion, then understanding, followed by something Kira would later recognize as determination. Of course we're helping. You asked for assistance, and we can offer it. That's all that matters. Behind Emily, Kira noticed the human crew working with practiced precision. Captain Mason, a tall man with graying hair, was already organizing his team. Their faces displayed focus and resolve, not the disdain or indifference the other species had shown. Begin emergency docking procedures. Captain Mason's voice came through, calm and firm. Dr. Brooks, prepare the medical bay for possible casualties. Lieutenant Turner, get your rescue team ready. We've got lives to save. Let's move. As Kira watched them spring into action, she felt something she hadn't expected. Hope. But there was something more. These humans, a species barely advanced enough to have starships, were doing what the most advanced civilizations had refused to do. They were coming to their aid. Lieutenant Michael Turner checked his rescue suit as the Endeavor's docking tube moved toward the disabled Starweaver. Behind him, Dr. Amanda Wells organized her medical kit, her movements quick and methodical. The rescue team waited in the airlock, ready for their task. Remember, we don't know much about their biology or ship design. Captain Mason's voice came through their comms. Stay alert and careful. Copy that, Captain, Michael replied, watching the docking tube approach. The Vidiian ship, with its flowing organic curves, appeared almost alive to human eyes. Dr. Emily Brooks stood beside him, her tablet displaying what little they knew about Vidiian physiology, which wasn't much. They're reptilian, but their body temperature is much higher than ours, Emily noted. Watch out for their tails. They use them for balance and might swing them when stressed. The docking tube sealed with a soft thud. Michael took a deep breath and opened the airlock. The first thing that struck him was the heat. The Starweaver was far warmer than human ships, and sweat instantly beaded on his forehead. But his suit's cooling system kicked in. 3 Vidiians stood on the other side, their scales shimmering under the emergency lighting, their large eyes reflecting the light with a feline intensity. The one in front, Kira, stepped forward cautiously. "Welcome aboard the Starweaver," she said, her translator making her voice sound mechanical. "We are grateful for your help." Emily smiled through her visor. "We're glad we could come. I'm Dr. Brooks, and this is Lieutenant Turner and Dr. Wells. We have more team members standing by once we assess the situation." Michael noticed how the Vidiians watched them carefully, their tails swaying ever so slightly. They seemed to be in disbelief that help had truly arrived. "Your engine room," Michael said, keeping his tone calm. "Can you show us?" As they moved through the ship, Michael's trained eye took in the damage. The situation was worse than expected. Power conduits dangled from the ceiling, and several corridors were sealed due to hull breaches. "We tried to fix it ourselves," one of the Vidiian engineers explained, leading them to the engine room. "But our technology, it's not as advanced as what the other species use. We couldn't." "Hey," Michael interrupted gently. "Sometimes the newest tech isn't the answer. Sometimes it's about using good, old-fashioned ingenuity and hard work. Let's see what we're dealing with." The engine room was a mess of twisted metal and burnout systems, but Michael saw the core components of the drive system. Different design, but the same principles. He activated his comm. "Captain, we'll need the full engineering team in about 6 hours. It's bad, but it's fixable." "Copy that, Lieutenant," Captain Mason's voice responded. Dr. Wells was scanning the crew with her medical equipment. Some minor injuries, signs of stress, but nothing critical. Their healing rate is remarkable. Throughout the inspection, Michael noticed the way the Vidiians were watching them. Curious, almost mesmerized. Finally, one younger crew member asked the question that had been on everyone's mind. "Why did you come?" "The others. They said we weren't worth saving." The human team exchanged looks, and it was Emily who answered, her voice steady. "Where we come from, if someone needs help and we can provide it, we help. It doesn't matter who they are or what technology they have. It's that simple." "But you risked your own ship," another Vidiian pointed out. "Your own lives." "Calculated risk," Michael said with a slight smile. "We're pretty good at those. Now, let's get your engine running again. Dr. Wells, can you set up a medical station here?" "Captain, we're ready for the engineering team." As the human crew began arriving through the docking tube with equipment and supplies, Kira watched in awe. The humans moved with purpose, but there was something more, a warmth and openness. Their readiness to smile, to offer reassurance. "Your species," Kira said quietly to Emily. "You're different from the others we've met." Emily paused in her work. "Different isn't always bad," she said with a smile. "Sometimes being different is exactly what's needed." Above them, the emergency lights continued to pulse, but somehow they didn't seem quite as ominous anymore. Help hadn't just arrived. Hope had come with it. The Starweaver's engine room buzzed with activity as human and Vidiian crews worked side by side. Captain Mason observed from the doorway as Lieutenant Turner guided the repairs. "Easy with that power coupling, Michael," Mason called out. "Those connections are different from ours, but they're just as delicate." The humans stripped down to cooling suits, while the Vidiians moved comfortably in the heat. Dr. Emily Brooks stood nearby, documenting the differences between human and Vidiian technology. "We didn't expect this level of creativity," Kira said, watching as the humans adapted their tools to fit Vidiian systems. "Humans have a long history of making things work with whatever they have," Emily said with a smile. "We call it improvising." A sudden spark shot from a nearby panel, causing crew members to jump back. Michael rushed forward, toolkit in hand. "Power surge. Everyone okay?" he shouted. "The containment field is failing," a Vidiian engineer cried, his scales darkening with stress. "We can't hold it." Captain Mason's voice came through the comms with calm authority. "Turner, what do you need?" "We need to stabilize that field, but our equipment isn't compatible," Michael replied, his mind racing. "Wait, Dr. Brooks, you said their power systems run on principles similar to our old fusion plants, right?" Emily nodded quickly. "Yes, but remember that old fusion stabilizer we were transporting?" Michael interrupted. "The 21st century one?" Mason's eyes widened. "The antique? You think it'll work?" "Physics is physics," Michael said with a grin. "Sometimes older is better." "Do it," Mason ordered. The next few minutes were a blur of frantic movement. Human crew members sprinted back to the Endeavor to retrieve the stabilizer, while Michael and the Vidiian engineers kept the systems from failing. Dr. Wells stood ready with medical supplies, concerned about possible radiation exposure. When the stabilizer arrived, it looked primitive compared to the sleek Vidiian technology. The Vidiian crew watched with a mix of doubt and hope as Michael and his team worked to connect it. "This device," one Vidiian engineer remarked, "it's so basic." "Basic isn't always bad," Michael replied, making final adjustments. "Sometimes the simplest solutions are the best." The stabilizer hummed to life. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, slowly, the warning lights began to fade, and the dangerous energy readings dropped to safe levels. The containment field was stable once again. Hope had arrived. The next few hours were a blur of focused activity. The Endeavor's engineering team worked tirelessly alongside the Vidiians, their hands steady, despite the heat and the overwhelming damage. The Starweaver's engines, once beyond hope, slowly began to hum to life under the careful guidance of the human crew. The constant flow of repairs and calculations seemed endless, but each breakthrough brought a new sense of progress. Kira couldn't help but observe the humans as they worked. They were so different from the other species they had encountered. Where others had shown disdain or apathy, these humans showed patience, dedication, and even kindness. There was a camaraderie between the two crews that felt like an unspoken promise. If you work together, nothing is impossible. By the time the repairs were nearly complete, Kira found herself standing beside Captain Mason in the now stabilized engine room, watching as the last of the power conduits were hooked back into place. "Your team is impressive," Kira said, her voice barely audible over the hum of the systems. "I had no idea humans could adapt this quickly." Mason, wiping the sweat from his brow, gave her a wry smile. "It's not about how fast we can adapt. It's about how hard we're willing to work when the chips are down." "You make it sound so simple," Kira said, her tone thoughtful. "And yet, it's something we've never seen from the other species we contacted." "Maybe that's because for some, it is simple," Mason replied, his eyes scanning the engine room. "When you see someone in need, you step up. It's not complicated." Kira's heart swelled, though she quickly masked it. In that moment, she realized how much the Vidiians had underestimated humans. Where others had refused to help, humans had jumped in without hesitation, even risking their own ship and lives. The sound of the Endeavor's engines powering up resonated through the ship, and Kira felt her own pulse quicken with relief. The Starweaver was no longer adrift. The gravity wells of the nearby systems no longer posed an imminent threat. They were going to make it. As the engineers finished securing the last of the repairs, the crew began to gather in the ship's central hall to debrief. Kira stood at the front, flanked by her fellow officers, and surveyed the humans, who had gathered alongside them in a quiet, almost serene unity. Captain Mason stood by her side, a quiet strength emanating from him. "We've made it," Kira said, her voice carrying across the room. "The repairs are complete. Thanks to your help." we'll be able to continue our mission." There was a pause before Mason spoke again, his voice low and measured. "You got a good crew here, Kira. I'll make sure we're here when you need us. If anything else happens, we'll be right by your side." Kira nodded, though her mind was racing. The Endeavor was already preparing to leave, but the Vidiian crew was no longer simply grateful. They were awestruck. They had witnessed something extraordinary, the strength of a young species that refused to be bound by its limitations. They had seen the humans, with their seemingly primitive technology, stand shoulder to shoulder with them and fight for their survival, no questions asked. "Thank you," Kira said, her voice strong despite the swirling emotions. "We owe you more than we can ever repay." Emily Brooks stepped forward, her smile gentle. "You don't owe us anything. You needed help, and we were able to provide it. That's all there is to it." But Kira knew better. The Endeavor's crew had offered them something far more valuable than just technical assistance. They had offered a rare gift in deep space: trust. They had placed their faith in the Vidiians when no one else had. For the first time in Kira's life, she saw the true power of cooperation. It wasn't about being the most advanced or the most powerful. It was about standing by one another when the universe seemed to turn its back. As the humans filed out of the hall, preparing to return to their ship, Kira lingered for a moment, staring at the door where Captain Mason had just exited. He had said the right words, but what struck her the most was how he had said them, without pride, without hesitation, as though this was simply what they did. They helped. Dr. Emily Brooks paused just as she was about to leave. She turned back, meeting Kira's gaze with an understanding that was almost eerie. "Don't forget, Kira," she said, her voice soft. "There's more out there who will help too. You just have to ask." Kira blinked in surprise, unsure of what to say. It was clear that Emily, and perhaps all humans, saw something in the universe that no one else had hope. She wasn't sure yet if she fully understood what that meant, but one thing was certain. The Vidiians would never again underestimate humanity. As the Endeavor's docking tube retracted, Kira stepped forward, watching the human ship prepare to leave. The ship wasn't the most elegant, nor was it the most technologically advanced. But as she looked at the departing vessel, she felt a strange sense of certainty. For all their flaws and their youth, humanity had already proven itself capable of things that others could only dream of. With a final wave, the Endeavor slipped into the darkness of space, and the Starweaver followed, now under its own power once again. Kira stood at the bridge, her tail swaying slowly behind her as she gazed out into the vastness. The stars seemed to shine just a little brighter now. The journey wasn't over, but for the first time in a long while, Kira believed they could face whatever lay ahead. In the dark depths of space, far beyond the reach of any other civilization, Kira and her crew had learned one undeniable truth. When no other species answered, humans would come to their aid. The weeks following the Endeavor's departure were filled with a quiet, almost unnatural calm aboard the Starweaver. With the ship now fully operational and the threat of being stranded in the void of space gone, the crew could finally focus on the mission at hand. Yet, something had shifted among them. An unspoken understanding had been forged in the wake of their encounter with the humans. They were no longer just a team of explorers, but a crew that knew what true collaboration looked like. Kira stood in the observation deck, looking out at the vast stretch of stars, her mind racing. She couldn't shake the feeling that the encounter with the humans had changed her perception of everything. For centuries, the Vidiians had focused on their research, their studies, their advancements. They had made contact with many civilizations, some far older and more powerful than their own. Yet, despite all their knowledge, they had failed in one crucial aspect: understanding the importance of connection. And now, they had seen it, the raw, unshakable determination of a young species that was driven not by power, but by the simple desire to help. The humans, with their humble beginnings, had shown the Vidiians that sometimes the most extraordinary thing wasn't technological might, but the willingness to reach out when others wouldn't. "Captain," a voice interrupted her thoughts. She turned to see a young officer, his scales still faintly reflecting the soft light of the observation deck. "The communication system is picking up another signal. It's not like the others, Captain. It's human." Kira's heart skipped a beat. Another human signal? On screen, she ordered, trying to keep her voice even. The main screen flickered and soon a human face appeared. This time a young man, his brown hair slightly disheveled but his expression calm. He wore a standard uniform, though it lacked the polished sheen of the Endeavor crew. "This is Lieutenant Samuel Hargrove of the Pioneer," the man began, his voice steady but with a hint of curiosity. "We've picked up your distress beacon. We're a little further out, but we'll be arriving in approximately 36 hours. Please confirm." Kira blinked, her mind struggling to comprehend. "Another ship?" "Yes, Captain," Hargrove confirmed. "We received your signal after Endeavor relayed it. We're ready to assist if you need anything, though we don't have quite the resources they did." Kira's tail twitched with nervous anticipation. "Thank you, Lieutenant. We'll be standing by. Please keep us updated on your progress." "Understood. Pioneer out." The screen went dark, and Kira felt a strange sense of both relief and unease. The humans had not only answered once. They were coming again, this time without the immediate need for life-threatening repairs. It wasn't the same as the Endeavor's heroic arrival, but it felt significant. The Vidiians had never been in a situation where they had 2 rescue missions in as many weeks. The idea that humans would continue to assist them, even without an immediate crisis, was almost overwhelming. Is this what it means to truly work together? Kira muttered under her breath, almost as if trying to convince herself. The voice of Dr. Orla, one of her chief engineers, broke her from her reverie. "Captain, we've reviewed the data on the Pioneer. It's a light exploration vessel, relatively new. From what we can tell, they're still in the process of developing their long-range capabilities. I don't think they'll be able to provide us with the kind of help Endeavor did, but their arrival could still be useful. It might be worth it to make a full report to them, so they're prepared when they get here." Kira nodded, processing the information. The Pioneer might not have the strength or capacity to undertake another major repair like the Endeavor had, but having their presence would be reassuring. And perhaps, just perhaps, the humans' ability to adapt and improvise could help again. "We'll prepare a briefing for them," Kira decided. "Make sure they know we're well enough to proceed without immediate repairs, but let them know we may need their help in other areas." "Yes, Captain," Dr. Orla replied, before turning to the rest of the crew. As Kira watched her officers bustle with purpose, she couldn't shake the thought that there was something more than just good intentions behind the humans' willingness to help. Could they be trying to prove something? Did they see the Vidiians as partners in some larger mission, or was this just their way of making allies? Whatever the reason, the shift had begun. Whether the Vidiians were ready for it or not, a new kind of relationship was being forged with humanity, one that went beyond mere survival. By the time the Pioneer arrived, the Starweaver was fully operational, and the mood among the crew had shifted from anxious anticipation to quiet excitement. They hadn't needed to rely on another species in years, not in the way they had with humans, at least. The arrival of the Pioneer was no longer just a necessity, it was a symbol. The docking bay doors opened to reveal a different crew, with a new energy. Lieutenant Hargrove was at the forefront, flanked by a diverse team of engineers and medical officers. Their ship was smaller than the Endeavor, though its design was sleek and modern, with a more utilitarian feel. Unlike the Endeavor's polished professionalism, the Pioneer had a rugged, almost exploratory quality to it. But there was no mistaking the humanity in their eyes. It was a look Kira had come to recognize, the unshakable belief that they had come to do what others wouldn't. "Captain Kira, Dr. Orla, it's an honor to meet you in person," Hargrove said as he extended a hand, his voice warm. Kira hesitated, then took his hand, her grip firm. "The honor is ours, Lieutenant. We appreciate your swift response. The situation is under control, but we may still need your assistance with long-range navigation and some of our minor systems. Your expertise in deep space exploration will be invaluable." Hargrove smiled, a glint of pride in his eyes. "We're happy to help, Captain. Anything you need, we're here for you." Behind him, his crew moved to work, setting up equipment and tools. Kira couldn't help but notice how quickly and efficiently they went about their tasks, their movements synchronized like a well-oiled machine. Even without the grandeur or advanced technology of their larger counterparts, The humans were masters of their craft. She had come to respect that. As Kira watched them, she realized that this was more than just a brief alliance between two species. This was the beginning of something that could change the entire trajectory of their future. She wasn't sure exactly what that future held, but she knew one thing for certain: humanity would be a part of it. In the quiet hum of the Starweaver, surrounded by the steady movements of the Pioneer's crew, Kira found herself thinking of something Captain Mason had said. Sometimes, the simplest solutions are the best. And perhaps that was true, not just for their ship's repairs, but for the greater journey ahead. Weeks passed, and the Pioneer's presence on the Starweaver felt almost routine. The initial excitement had faded into a quiet but steady collaboration. Human and Vidiian engineers worked side by side in harmony, as did their medical teams. The repairs were completed with precision, and the crew felt their ship hum with life once more. Yet, despite the progress, Kira found herself unable to shake the feeling that something was changing beneath the surface. The humans had come to help, certainly, but there was more to it. Their crew members weren't just focused on the mission. They were invested in something greater. There was a shared sense of purpose, one that extended beyond simple survival. The humans treated the Vidiians with a respect Kira had rarely encountered, seeing them not just as a species in need, but as equals collaborators. It had been a long time since she had experienced that kind of partnership, and perhaps it was the novelty of it all that unsettled her. It was easier to accept help from those you knew could help, but accepting help from those who were new to space, with fewer resources, fewer answers, well, that was something entirely different. One evening, as Kira and Dr. Orla reviewed the status of the final phase of repairs, a communication came through from the Endeavor. It was a message from Captain Mason. "Captain Kira," the human's voice crackled over the comms. "I hope you've had time to adjust to our presence. It's been a pleasure working with you and your crew. I wanted to extend an invitation to you and any of your senior officers to join us on a mission in the next sector. We've come across a potential research site, a star system that could provide valuable insights into the origins of the galaxies. It's still a bit of a trek, but we think it could be worth investigating." Kira felt her pulse quicken. A joint mission? The Vidiians and humans, working together on a scientific endeavor of this scale? "We would be honored to join you, Captain Mason," Kira replied, her voice steady but filled with excitement she could not quite suppress. "I'll inform my senior officers. Please send the coordinates." After the call ended, Kira turned to Dr. Orla. "Do you think we're ready for this? A joint research mission, with humans as our equals?" Dr. Orla looked thoughtful. "I believe so. The Endeavor's expertise, combined with our knowledge of galactic phenomena, could result in significant breakthroughs. But I think you're concerned about something else, aren't you, Captain?" Kira's gaze shifted to the stars outside the observation window. "Yes, I am. I'm beginning to wonder. What happens next? Do we continue to stand apart like we always have? Or do we try something different? This partnership with the humans, it feels like it could change everything." Dr. Orla's voice softened. "That's the risk of progress, Captain. To move forward, you must sometimes let go of what you knew before. But if we are to evolve, we must embrace the change, together." The day of departure came quickly. The Pioneer and Endeavor were already waiting in the docking bay when the Starweaver emerged from the dark nebula they had called home for so long. Kira stood on the bridge, watching the ships that had become a part of their crew, a part of their mission. As the ships prepared to leave the system and venture toward the unknown star system, Kira felt a wave of uncertainty wash over her. This mission was more than just a scientific endeavor. It was a statement, a declaration that the Vidiians, once isolated in their pursuit of knowledge, were now extending their hands to others. And in return, the humans, young, untested, had offered theirs. "Ready when you are, Captain." Dr. Orla's voice broke through her reverie. Kira straightened, nodding to her crew. "Let's go. We've made history just by getting here. Now let's see what's next." As the Starweaver joined the two human vessels and began its journey into the unknown, Kira couldn't help but feel that this was a turning point. They were no longer alone in their exploration of the universe. The universe itself had become a shared endeavor. The weeks that followed were filled with discovery. The star system they ventured into held new wonders, planets with unusual atmospheres, gravitational anomalies that baffled even the most experienced scientists, and signs of ancient civilizations lost to time. The Starweaver worked seamlessly with the Pioneer and Endeavor, each crew member contributing their expertise to a common goal. But it wasn't just the science that was new. The collaboration between the Vidiians and the humans grew stronger with every passing day. Kira found herself in discussions with Dr. Emily Brooks more frequently, not just about the research they were conducting, but about the future. How could they ensure this partnership would last? Could they join forces to influence the galactic community? Were they prepared to face the challenges of a universe so vast and unknown, with only each other to rely on? As they worked, a plan began to form, a plan to bring more species into this fold. They couldn't rely solely on the humans. There were other civilizations, other species who would see the potential of this new alliance. The Vidiians and humans together, working as one, not in competition, but in mutual respect and collaboration. Together, they could be a force that would reshape the galaxy. One day, after months of successful joint missions and research, Captain Mason called for a gathering. It wasn't a meeting to discuss repairs or scientific findings. It was something more. Today, Captain Mason began, standing before a crowd of Vidiians and humans alike, marks the beginning of a new chapter, not just for our species, but for the galaxy itself. The partnership we've forged here has shown that cooperation, rather than rivalry, is the true path to progress. And from today forward, we will continue to explore, to learn, and to grow together. This is just the beginning. Kira stood at his side, her heart swelling with a sense of pride. This was more than just a mission now. This was the dawn of something bigger than either species had ever imagined. She turned to Dr. Orla, who was standing beside her, and smiled. "We've done it. We've changed the course of our future." Together, Dr. Orla nodded, her eyes reflecting the same hope Kira felt. "And we will continue to change it, Captain." Together, with a final glance at the humans standing alongside them, Kira took a deep breath. There was no more uncertainty, no more fear, only the promise of a future that had been built, not by the might of advanced civilizations, but by the courage of those who dared to help, who dared to stand united. And in that moment, as they all turned their gaze to the stars, Kira knew one thing with absolute certainty. The Vidiians and humans would not just survive the challenges of the universe. They would thrive together.